Hello and welcome to another Magic the Gathering video. This time round I've got something that some people may have not seen before. Over the weekend I was down in Toronto, took a trip down there, and while I was there I got a chance to check out a few game stores, one of which was 401 Games on Yonge Street. And while I was in there I noticed something I'd not seen before in shops anyway, which are these Worlds decks. I've seen them online, but this is the first time I've actually seen them in a shop. So I decided to pick up a couple of 2004 decks. They don't make these anymore, and they did them for several years. And basically, they are the exact decks that were used in those World Championships. So the two here are the deck that was played by the finalist Aeo Paquette, and also the other finalist who went on to be the world champion, Julien Nuijten. So what I'm going to do is I've got to open these up, have a look inside, see what they're like. These cards are not legal for sanctioned play. You'll notice they have gold borders on them to signify that. And in here there's a 60 card deck. You get the 15 card sideboard, deck list, deck description, and also 12 proxy cards. So that's something I've not seen in a deck before, and it'd be interesting to see what form those proxies take. So if we open up the Aeo Paquette deck first, I think. So this deck is Affinity. Now there was a lot of Affinity that year, made a lot of Magic players very miserable, but it was interesting that Affinity didn't win the World Championship. This made it through to the final, but it didn't win at that point. So let's have a look and see what we have in this deck. Interesting, the cards feel a little different, but maybe that's just my imagination. It's a bit weird with the backs here, not the normal Magic backs on them either. So you can see here's the gold border that I was talking about. Let's zoom that in a bit more so you can see the cards a bit better. Okay, so the other thing you'll notice is because these are tournament tune decks, you're going to see a lot more 3-ofs, 4-ofs in here than you would say with like something like an intro deck. So in some ways these are more like the consistency of an event deck. So we're going to see, like within this one, we've got 3 Serum Visions in the deck. We have a Seething Song, and notice also in this particular deck they've included the logo of the particular set that it came from. So these decks don't have like a unique symbol for the deck like some of the special decks do for other things. So I'm thinking there of things like the dual decks where they know their own little symbol. So we've got Seething Song in here. You also see all the cards have the signature on of the particular player. And there were 4 Seething Songs in this deck. Furnace Dragon, which not surprisingly has affinity for artifacts. So this was a rare from in the deck. 6 colourless, 3 red, flying, and so with the affinity for artifacts, it actually costs 1 colourless to play for each artifact that you control. And you can see in a moment where all those artifacts come from. Has flying, and when Furnace Dragon comes into play, if you played it from your hand, remove all artifacts from the game. There's 4 of those in the deck, and that's a 5/5. We've got a null, so this is counterspell for artifacts or enchantments. and a full complement of those in the deck. So I think, looking at this, that in actual fact would have been the sideboard. Let's just check this, because I'm totally unfamiliar with what to expect in this. I've completely opened this without really looking at the deck lists. Yep, so that looks like the sideboard in actual fact. There's a little bit of a card there as well about the finalist. And now we must be onto the main deck. So here we go, here's our land base. We've got Vault of Whispers, not surprising in this deck. A lot of artifact land, I should imagine. This one is generates black mana. And because this is non-basic land, you're going to be limited to a maximum of 4 in this deck if you played the maximum you're allowed. And we move on to Seat of the Synod, so that generates blue mana, and I suspect there are 4 of those in here. Yep. Great Furnace, so the same thing but in red. Of those. Let me just check that. Glimmer Void. So this was a rare land. At the end of turn, if you control no artifact, sacrifice Glimmer Void, you can tap and add 1 mana of any colour to your mana pool. Let's see how many of these there are. There's the second one. And a third, and then in here there's also a Blink Moth Nexus. So you can tap this, add 1 colourless to your mana pool. For cost of 1 colourless, Blink Moth Nexus becomes a 1/1 Blink Moth artifact creature with flying until end of turn. It's still a land. You can also play 1 colourless, tap it, target Blink Moth, gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And there are 3 of those. So that was our land base, and we move on to our first non-land artifact. So we've got a Wielding Jar in here. Costs 0 to cost. You can sack it and regenerate a target artifact. A full complement of those. Thoughtcast. Four of those. Shrapnel Blast. Cranial Plating in here as well. In fact, not surprisingly, 4 Cranial Platings. Chrome Mox in here, so this is another rare, 0 to cast. Imprint. When Chrome Mox comes into play, you may remove a non-artifact, non-land card in your hand from the game. The removed card is an imprint imprinted on this artifact. You can tap it, add 1 mana of any of the imprinted card's colours to your mana pool. So you can fix colours with this. There's a full complement of those in the deck. Somber Hoverguard, another card with affinity for artifacts, so it costs 1 colour less to play for each artifact you control. There's an Ornithopter, which is an artifact creature. And there are 4 of those in the deck. Frogmite, another artifact creature. This has affinity for artifacts. Disciple of the Vault. Artbound Worker. So these Artbound Workers also has something on it called Modular, which you may have not seen before. So it's Modular 1. This comes into play with a +1/+1 counter on it. When it's put into a graveyard, you may put its 1/1 counters on the target artifact creature. Also, you've got an Artbound Ravager in here. So this is a rare. 2 colourless for a 0/0. Sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on Artbound Ravager. It also has Modular 1, so it comes into play with a +1/+1 counter on it. Full complement of those. And then there's obviously a card suggesting that we collect all 4 World Championship decks. Because of course, although there was a top 8, for this particular set of decks they just decided to do 4 from the top 8. So they had the 2 finalists and then a semi-finalist and a quarter-finalist. And these look like these are going to be the proxy cards. Although there's another one of the, here's the card description. So these are what the proxies look like that are included in these decks. Just basically magic cards with nothing in them, but of course they have the same backs on them. There you go. So that was the Aeo Paquette deck with obviously the sideboard as well first of all. And then we're going to have a look at the Julien Nuijten deck. So this was the actual winner of the 2004 World Championships. Okay, so let's have a look. So this is our sideboard. Scrabbling Claws. So this particular deck is what's referred to as a green-white Astral Slide deck. So in our sideboard we got 3 Scrabbling Claws. Rude Awakening, which is a rare, 4 and a green. Choose one. Untap all lands you control, or until the end of turn, lands you control become 2/2 creatures that are still lands. Has Entwine for 2 and a green. Choose both if you pay the Entwine cost. So there were just 2 of those in the sideboard. Plough Under, 3 and 2 green. So another rare here from 8th edition. They put 2 target lands on top of their owner's library. Second one, and a third. Also got Oxidize in here, obviously in a competition that's going to have a lot of affinity decks in it, a lot of artifacts there. It's important to have a card like Oxidize. Destroy target artifact, it can't be regenerated. And there's 4 of those in the sideboard. There's also a Circle of Protection red in here. Then a little bit of a stats card about the world champion. So now we're moving on to the main deck. So now we have Windswept Heath. So this is a non-basic land. So we pay 1 life, we sacrifice Windswept Heath, search your library for a forest or plains card and put it into play, and then shuffle your library. So here we have a forest plains fetch land. And in this particular deck we have 4 of those. Tranquil Thicket, so it comes into play tapped. You add green to your mana pool if you tap it, but it also has cycling on it for 1 green. And there's 4 of those. Secluded Steep, or Step, I think that is, yeah, Secluded Step. Add 1 colours to your mana pool, so you tap it, add 1 colours to your mana pool, and cycling for 1 colour, 1 white. Sorry, tap, add 1 white to your mana pool, cycling for 1 white. 4 of those. Then we move on to the basic lands, so we've got some plains in this deck. So these came from 8th edition. And some forests, also from 8th edition. Okay, so we have a Wrath of God in here. So 2 and 2 white, you get to destroy all creatures. They can't be regenerated, so very, very good board sweeper. And obviously 4 of those. Wing Shards, so this is an instant for 1 and 2 white. Target player sacrifices an attacking creature. Renewed Faith. So 4 of those, it's got life gain on and cycling. When you cycle it, you can gain 2 life. Rampant Growth. So this is obviously going to help with your counting out that basic land. And there's a full set of those. Plough Under is in the main deck. We saw one of those in the sideboard, or several of those in the sideboard. Decree of Justice. So we've got XX, 2 colourless, and then 2 white, and you get to put X44 white angel creature tokens with flying into play. So to break that down, supposing you wanted to put 2 say 2 4/4 white angel creatures into play, that's basically going to cost you 6 colourless and 2 white. It's got cycling for 2 colourless and white. When you cycle Decree of Justice, you may pay X. If you do, put X11 white soldier creature tokens into play. And we have Astral Slide in here. So this is an enchantment, 2 and a white. Whenever a player cycles a land, you may remove target creature from the game. If you do, return that creature to play under its owner's control at the end of turn. So you've got flickering going on here. And there's 4 of those. Achroma's Vengeance, 4 and 2 white, sorcery, destroy artifacts, creatures and enchantments, and it's cycling for 3 on it. So another board sweeper, Viridian Shaman. Another card that targets artifacts, not surprisingly. Complement of those. Eternal Witness is in here. To return a target card when it comes into play, and there's 4 of those. Eternal Dragon, 5 and 2 white for 5/5 with flying. 3 and 2 white, you can return Eternal Dragon from your graveyard to your hand. Play this ability only during your upkeep, and it also has plane cycling on it, so you pay 2 colourless, discard this card from your hand, search your library for a planes card, reveal it, and then put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So 4 of those Eternal Dragons. And we have yet again another card to implore you to buy all 4 World Championship decks. And then obviously we have the actual deck listing and our proxies here. Okay, so there we have it. That's an unboxing for the 2 World Championship 2004 decks that I picked up. So there they are, one for Julien Nuijten and the other one for Aeo Paquette. Thanks for watching.